Good afternoon, Year 5. It's history, and we're going to look at the beliefs of the Maya, the religious beliefs of the Maya today. Okay, so we've got lots of vocabulary coming out of today's lesson. So the ones in green are the ones I think we should know before we start. So let's look at the top there. Astronomy. Astronomy is the study of the stars. So that means looking out at the rest of the universe and the science of the rest of the universe. We're going to use the word eclipse. Eclipse is where the sun is positioned behind the moon in such a way that the moon obscures the light of the sun. This only happens once every 100 years, something in that region. It's not something that happens regularly. So we call that an eclipse. Then at the top there we've got Venus. Now expect us to know that one really. That's the second planet from the Sun. Venus, our close neighbour. And then the fourth word in green there is the word sacrifice. Sacrifice in religious terms means when an animal, or in some circumstances a person, is killed and there's a gift to a god. It's not something that takes place in modern religion, but it is a part of historical religions across the world. Now the rest of the words there we're going to define as we move through today's lesson. So the first thing we're going to say is that the Mayans were polytheists. This means they believed in many gods. This isn't so common anymore. The major religions of the world now that we study in RE, most of them are monotheistic religions. This means that they only worship one God. So in Christianity, they worship the Christian God. In Islam, they worship Allah. Now, in other ancient religions, such as the religions of the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Romans, the ancient Greeks, they worshipped many gods in different ways. Hinduism is a bit of a parallel for this because Hindus worship also hundreds of different gods. So they're also polytheists. The Mayans were also animalists. This means that they believed that animals had religious significance. In fact, they believed that the earth was in the form of a giant turtle shell that floated on an endless ocean, and that the sky was held up by four mighty gods called Bacchus. The sky was made up of 13 levels. Those who were sacrificed or died in battle went to one of the top levels as their afterlife. Their afterlife was straight to the very top level. People who died of natural causes went to Shibalba, shadowy underworld, which had 9 levels itself. Let's get a little bit more information on this in our video.
The gods and spirits are so important to my people, the Maya. The kings are head priests, and he can speak directly to the gods. They have one other hand, priests, image all of the Maya. We have many different gods.
So for the Maya, astronomy went hand in hand with religion. This means that the stars they believed were an integral part of their faith and their religious beliefs. They believed that the will and actions of the gods could be read in the movements of the stars and the planets. Now, this is quite similar to something we would call astrology. Astrology, not astronomy. The two sound very similar. Astrology is more closely linked to the signs of the zodiac and predicting events based on the position of planets and the position of stars. The ancient Maya were brilliant astronomers. They were interested in every aspect of the night skies. They observed the sun, the moon, and the planets, especially Venus. Maya astronomers were experts at predicting solar eclipses. So that's when the moon moved in front of the sun. They could predict down to the day when they knew that was going to happen next. So the Maya believed that the Earth was at the center of the universe and that the planets, moons, and stars moved around it. This is called geocentric theory. Is this true? Just pause here and have a think about it. Well, I'm hoping you think back to our space topic and say, no, this isn't true. This belief was common in our part of the world for many hundreds of years as well. It wasn't until the theories of people like Galileo came forward and we realized that actually that the planets move around the sun and we live in a heliocentric system. Some planets and stars were believed to be gods themselves, traveling between the heaven and the underworld. This backs up this idea that Mayan religion was intricately weaved into their astronomical observations. The Mayans watched the movement of the planets in the night sky, and they planned their events to coincide with the position of stars and planets in the sky. In fact, you might remember from our first history lesson, when we looked at the temple of Kukulkan in Chichen Itza, how the position of the pyramid is designed so that a snake is formed at the winter and summer solstice on those two special nights of the year. Now, also for Mayans, the position of Venus was really important and played a part in planning of war. And we'll come on to that a little bit later. So they believed that the sun was in fact a god. To them, the sun's name was Kinikahau. Kinikahau shone in the sky all day and then turned into jaguar at night as he traveled through Xibalba, the Mayan underworld. So they believed that the god daily turned into a jaguar and then moved through the underworld at night. Now they had important beliefs about the moon as well. They observed the movements of the moon in great detail and took very accurate recordings of the lunar calendar, just like we learnt about in our space topic. Now, this isn't entirely certain, but many scholars believe that they did think that the moon was a god as well, maybe known as Ixchel. She was locked in an everlasting battle with that sun god, dragging him into the underworld, Xibalba, at the end of each day. I say some scholars believe this is because we know that many parts of Mayan society are unknown, and historical evidence is only so good, and some of the ideas we have about the Mayans, they're not 100% certain. So the Maya identified the main planets in the solar system, and they did record their movements, but Venus was by far the most important, and they treated Venus almost on a parallel to the sun and the moon. They associated Venus primarily with war. Military campaigns would be arranged to tie in with the movement of Venus, so they'd only begin wars when Venus was in the right position, and things like the sacrifice of prisoners of war would be planned for a certain position of Venus in the night sky. In fact, the Mayans recorded the movements of Venus, and they said that the Venusian year was 584 days long. Incredible, really, because now with modern scientific computers, we can say that the Venusian year is 583.92 days long. So they were pretty much bang on. In fact, their observations and predictions without telescopes and other instruments were really, really precise. We know about their observations because they recorded them on stone slabs, called stelae, and they carved their hieroglyphic language onto them, and then also on their ancient books made of animal skins called codices. So that's it for our Mayan religious beliefs roundup. To see what you've learned, I'd like you to head over to assignments and have a go at the quiz that you should find in assignments. So back over to Teams, open the assignments tab and have a go at the Mayan history quiz.